everybody. If you're here, we're here. We had a little tech trouble. I'm completely helpful with technology, as you all know. So I made up a song about how much I don't like technology, and so while I sang it, Kyle solved it. So if you hung in there and you're still with us, welcome to Chat with the Pastors. I also took the opportunity to button my collar because I thought I might look a little more clergy. Yeah, Kyle's buttoning his collar. So I think we look a little more formal and clergy-like. So you all can let us know what you think. So it is a great Tuesday afternoon of Holy Week, and it is warm out. And so I'm guessing if you're not with us, I hope you're outside enjoying the weather. Or maybe you can take your computers out and enjoy the weather outside and chat with the pastors. And okay, this is bugging me. So we, Kyle and I were talking
a while.
This is probably why I never would have been. Never would have been able to be a priest anyway. Even if they would have said women were okay, is because I could never have dealt with the collar. Anyway, Kyle and I were talking a bit earlier about how hard this is. And it's sort of like I keep expecting to wake up and have it be less hard. And then I keep being surprised that it doesn't seem to be less hard. And so I think what's sort of hard today is the stark realization for me that we literally are not going to gather for any of our Holy Week services. Now that may sound to the rest of you like, well, Nanette, we kind of already knew that. I think I just kept thinking somehow, because I have this place in my mind as an imaginer. I just kept thinking somehow that it would all sort of be different. And today I woke up and realized it's not. And so that's hard for me today. So Kyle, what do you think? What's hard for you today?
I had a very thoughtful answer for this question, but then I forgot it. Let me give you some less thoughtful answers.
Okay.
In my home right now, if you see me intermittently do this, there is a fly that is approximately the size of a small bird that has been flying around ever so loudly and mockingly, I think for like 4 times the normal lifespan of a housefly. So
80 degrees, and so it's happy.
I wish it would be happy outdoors. So that's been hard. For me, it does feel like every day I get a little bit more sure that we have no idea what's going on, and we have nothing that resembles a timeline for when normal looks like. Hope asked me this week, she said, hey, when do you think, not that I know anything, but if you had to guess, when do you think in the scheme of things going back to normal, churches will kind of begin to meet again? And it just made me realize, not only do I not know when what I assume will be small incremental steps towards normal begin again, but then like where does church fit into that? And I don't know the answer to that. But so that is a piece of it. But then I'll say a couple of messages that we've both gotten, Nanette, and many that I'm sure you've gotten, and many that I've gotten, is realizing all of the different ways that this is affecting people. So I talked to a mother of somebody in our church whose daughter seems like she might have COVID, and she can't get tested because it's not life-threatening, and so she's having to be away from her family, and so she's not getting the care of home, and that's hard on so many levels, hard for mom and dad especially, and then a message from somebody. I've had conversations with people working in healthcare, and the way that weighs on them And we both got a message from somebody who works in distribution that provides supplies to folks, and they're having to go to work. And what's interesting in this language is every time I hear conversations from people on that side of things, it's like, I know that I'm really grateful and blessed that I still have work, and I'm really worried about this. And so, as people are sharing with us, that's one of the things that's becoming really hard for me, is hearing just the multiplicity of ways that this is impacting folks that aren't necessarily the immediate things that you think about in relation to this.
Yeah, yeah, it's sort of like I'll get these messages that somebody's father-in-law's son or father-in-law's aunt or something that's maybe 2 or 3 times removed, who is, if they're not struggling with the disease, they have a loved one who is struggling with it. And so I think sometimes I can live in this sort of bubble-ish world, where I do what I encourage people not to do, which is, there are statistics, but when the statistics become people who know people who know people, then it reminds me that there's a reason we're overwhelmed right now.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that we are left sort of wondering. And every piece of good news, it's like, I think I read this morning that China did not have any deaths to report today. And I'm like, okay, that's good news. And it sort of, it says, okay, there will be a point where this is not the only thing that we think about or talk about. And at the same time, then I get a little bit nervous about, there's not going to be like one day when we don't have to shelter anymore. And so then we can all get together in a crowd of like 800 people.
Right.
Because that's not the way it's going to be. And we don't know the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And for a person who has some wanting to plan ahead, a lot, challenges, it's hard not to know how to plan ahead. And I think that's, I'm going to use that as a grace moment as well, Kyle, because I know we wanted to talk about grace moments as well. This time is inviting me to try to live fully in the moment. Now we're putting services online. I mean, we're recording our services ahead of time to give Chandler and his crew a time to be able to edit those services and put them together and make them look good, or as good as possible with who they're dealing with. But even doing those services ahead of time, I still am challenged to live fully just today. And not to think, oh, okay, well, we have, as soon as Easter's over, Confirmation Sunday is coming, and Volunteer Recognition Sunday is the last Sunday of April, and Confirmation Sunday is the first Sunday of May. And I stop myself, and I think, okay, maybe and maybe not, in terms of meeting all together. And so, Nanette, just live today. Just be thankful that it's 80 degrees, or maybe it's not quite yet, but I just have that number in my mind. And it's nice out, and people can go for walks. And maybe that's what God's grace is today, is to live fully in the moment. But what about you? What are grace moments for you?
For me, I would say that I'm slowly falling into a slightly slower pace. Not a lot, but there are just a few things as the calendar has kind of decluttered, so to speak, that have allowed me a little bit more space to kind of move a bit differently. Holy Week is both challenging but also providing a bit of grace for me, and that's why I'm doing that daily devotional as much as anything. Is I saw a meme that said something about from, I think Sharon Becker shared it, that said something about from this point until further notice, days shall be called this day, that day, a couple of days ago, and someday soon. Uh, and so for me, that practice of kind of writing each day is helping mark time. It's also with the pre-recording services I shared with somebody. It's really weird Sunday afternoon of Palm Sunday to be hammering out Good Friday, and there's Monday, Thursday, and there's Holy Saturday, and we will record Easter Sunday services before Good Friday. The thing that your pastor tells you, don't do this. You
Exactly.
can't have Easter without Good Friday.
Exactly.
And that's the reality we live in. And so it becomes this, it takes time to center and get myself in the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and but it's happening. It's happening.
Right. And I don't want to, I don't want to give a spoiler. So spoiler alert. So I decided on Sunday with the Good Friday services to film some of it up here in our outdoor worship space. Because I couldn't kind of get my mind around what you just said, that we're filming Good Friday before Good Friday, and we're going to film Easter before Good Friday. By the way, I haven't done that one yet. And so it just being outside in that outdoor worship area for part of Good Friday somehow settled me and helped me feel. I think being outside in sort of the woodsy area for some reason, and the branches are pretty stark, put me in that sense of contact with Good Friday. And I one of the words that I did this year was, woman here is your son here is your mother. And I say in my reflection that I've never preached on that particular word on Good Friday in all my years of ministry. And the difference that made to me this year. And I'll be honest with you. I thought, well, okay, maybe one of the deals of this year, having Easter sort of in my part of it done before Easter Sunday, I'm just gonna, and I'll just be honest about this, and don't try this at home. I just decided I was gonna go home and see my mother. So I decided I was gonna drive out to Western Kansas. Okay, what part of shelter at home am I not understanding? I was going to take the back roads. Because I know all the back roads out to Almena and Norton, and I was just going to go out and I was going to stay on my parents' driveway with them and have conversation with them from a long ways away on their driveway for 2 hours. So I was going to drive all the way out, spend 2 hours with them, and drive all the way back. And I thought it was a marvelous idea for Easter. Just a fantastic idea for Easter. Nanette, what part of shelter at home do you not get? Right? So I called my parents. And they were like excited, like they were supposed to be, because I'm their daughter. And then the next day, and I love my mother so much, she texts me. My mother has learned to text, and that's amazing to me. I can't imagine.
Is that a gift or a concern?
I think that is a grace gift.
Okay.
I can't imagine how long it takes her, frankly. I can't. But she texts me and she goes, Nanette, you know how much we would love to have you come. We think maybe it's not a very good idea. And I'm like, what? She goes, now I know how hard-headed you are, and we can't talk you out of it. She's known me a few years. She says, it sort of feels to me like you should not be banking on gas stations being open And you shouldn't be stopping in those places anyway, either to be exposed or to expose others. My mother is still wiser than I am. Okay, that's a huge grace learning for me. And so I decided today that I would not go to my parents on Easter Sunday, even driving out and driving back. And, it just like sort of slaps me in the face again that I want to believe that things are normal and things aren't normal. And there's grace in that, and there's challenge in that. There's grace for me that my mother said, Annette, we love you. We'd love to see you. No, don't come. She's absolutely right. She's absolutely right. And I'm so thankful for that. So I'm sort of thankful and mad at the same time. I'm just kind of still on a roller coaster, and maybe some of the folks who are watching are on that roller coaster too. Because you think about Easter Sunday. Well, I talked to Mark Holland today, and I said, my mom and I decided, I wasn't willing to give my mom entire credit in front of him either. I go, my mom and I decided maybe it wasn't a great idea for me to drive home. And he said, my parents are living where they're living and we can't go see them. And so he said, we're going to have a virtual Easter. We're going to have virtual Easter lunch. So they'll be having lunch, we'll be having lunch, and then we'll be FaceTiming or Zooming or whatever. So everybody's finding their way, right. But it's just, again, a reminder that the celebration is different this year, but it doesn't mean that it can't be a celebration, I guess.
Yeah. So for those watching, I see we've got Kate and Mona, Jordan, Renee, Grace. We got a lot of folks on here.
Tammy Watkins, you need to read my blog tomorrow when it comes out. Your dad is in it. Okay, I'm sorry, I digress.
We would love to hear from you some of maybe your answers to those same questions. What is most difficult this week, or what's been a small moment of grace or an unexpected moment of grace? One of the things that we've talked about is over these next few weeks, that second question particularly will probably be a recurring question. What does grace look like this week? Where are you experiencing that? Because I think not only do we do ourselves a favor in cultivating that awareness, but I think it's a great joy to share those.
Wait, Kyle, I'm going to interrupt you. Yeah. Gretchen Crow's 91-year-old mom has Zoomed with her church group. And Gretchen says, I can't figure it out. I love that, Gretchen. I love that.
That is
your
fantastic.
Your 91-year-old mother is Zooming. I love that so much.
Oh.
That is the best. And Judy Barker, isn't your mom Maxine's birthday coming up? I seem to remember that. And I know it's hard for you, Judy, for not you and Brittany and your family to not be able to go in and see Maxine. It's hard for her as well. But my gosh, I've seen the pictures of you waving at her outside her window and I think probably talking on the phone. So tell your mom that we're thinking about her as well and wishing her a happy birthday.
Suzanne Cooper is talking about dinner on the driveway. I assume 6 feet away from her daughter. I love that. That's fantastic.
And Carol, you're right. Carol, the warm weather makes a huge difference. And it made a huge difference to me, not only the warmth, but when those clouds went away, I needed the clouds to go away.
Yes.
So I am thankful for the blue sky. And Grace's family is going to have Easter Sunday in Zoom while eating and coloring eggs. Oh, that's fantastic.
Nice. I love that. That's a great
me
idea.
Too. Yeah.
Hope and I are gonna have Easter brunch here, and we're gonna watch the services. And as far as I know, I'll never be able to do that again for all of my ministry career. So that'll be something fun and different and a way to celebrate.
Linda Lynch. Linda Lynch was exposed, and today's the end of her quarantine, and she didn't get sick.
Excellent.
Yay.
Excellent.
Yay. We're happy about that. And you know what, Kyle, I just, there are blooms on trees, and that tells me spring is coming. And I know there's a little bit of winter left. I know it's predicted, but there's also blooms on trees. And so I'm happy about that. And Ryan, I'm glad that you're seeing your kids and their fellow students interact with the teachers. You know what? That makes a difference too, doesn't it? I mean, I'm sure, I can't imagine how hard it is for kids to be home and parents trying to help them be in school. Absolutely. Over the computer, but to be able to see your kids interact with their teachers, because you wouldn't ever probably get to do that. That is pretty cool. Yeah. I kind of love that.
Well, and I've heard other people talking about the just seeing their spouses in work mode, and perhaps kids in school mode, but just how different that is. I don't know if that's a grace or a concern or what, but it's a new experience.
It's that Facebook post that says, "Oh, my spouse is one of those let's circle back people on Zoom."
Yeah. Who knew?
So what I've been told is that, and this shouldn't surprise anyone, that when I'm on Zoom, I am particularly loud, as if I'm trying to actually yell enough at the people who are on Zoom that they can hear me in real life. I don't know what that's about. I'm normally loud anyway, but evidently I get louder on Zoom. So
maybe you can get some lessons from Gretchen's mom.
So. Yeah. That's hilarious. I also had I had a call this morning from a person whose wife has been invited to travel to a different part of the country and do counseling with folks who are on the front lines and have gone through final moments with folks when their families couldn't be there. And she's seriously considering going, and he's terribly distraught about that. Yeah. And so, you know, my heart sort of swells at the knowledge that there are folks who are sacrificing and who are traveling from Kansas City to different parts of the country to help nurse and to help with the emergency room stuff and to help do psychological counseling and all of that. But it also makes me afraid for their families.
Right.
And so again, it's just what we're going through is such a mixed bag. And I have a nephew who's a captain of an ambulance crew, of an EMT out in Hayes, and I worry about him. Hayes has one reported case as far as I know so far, but usually where there's one, right, more will follow.
Right.
And yet he's strong and he's healthy, but I also know he's the father of my 3 little great nephews and the husband of my niece-in-law, Angela, who I love. And so, you know, Kyle, there's kind of no part of our life. And you know what I want? I want what you all want. I want to go out and see them. Right? I want to chase my nephews around like I did when they were little, and as their old widow or as their old single aunt, and like kiss their heads, you know, and they would run screaming away. I love that. And I want to do that to my great nephews again. Right. So, yeah. And it's just, that part of it's really hard right now, I think, for all of us. And yet, you know what? It's spring and there's new life. And our youth director, Jeff, and his wife just had a new baby. Woo-hoo! And they're, yay. And his name is Ezra, and they're all healthy. And the birth was fast, like 12 minutes. They got to the birthing center, and like 12 minutes later, Ezra came, you know, well, as I want to say, rather indelicately, shooting out. My guess is that wasn't Caroline's probably experience. But you know what? There's a new baby, and it's God's affirmation that this is not the defining moment of reality. What we're living through right now is not the defining moment of reality.
Well, let me say this as a on that same note. I put in a note to some folks this week that this normally people at Common Grace would have heard me say ad nauseum to invite people to church and to be a part. Of course, we were planning a Easter egg hunt with our friends at Cedar Lake Village and all of that, because this is a season where people are more open to that. That's on a normal Easter season. And then we come into this, and I think there are people who are wanting hope and good news, and to be reminded that new life continues, and to be reminded that the gloom moments, the Good Fridays, the difficulties that we dredge through, they're not the last moment.
Right.
And so I think for those of us in our community and those that we're connected to, this is a great time to encourage people to learn, experiment, figure out what it means to do this together apart. And so I think inviting people to be a part of a service, sharing things, that is vitally important.
Yeah.
And not that I've written my sermon yet, or I don't know that Nanette has, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be a really key component, is the hope that comes with Easter. And that there is something that we can't imagine in difficult seasons still ahead. So
I'm sorry, I was just waving at somebody that just came on. Hi, Diana. Yes, and I think, and we have about 3 minutes left here, but one of the things that made me think of is I have a very good friend who works in New York City, Greg Stoskov. He's a member of the board of trustees at Baker, and the nephew of a really good friend of mine, his Aunt Mary. And Greg said that what moves him is that every night now, I think it's every night, in New York at 6:30, everybody who has a balcony goes out on the balcony. Everybody who has a window opens their window, and they all cheer and clap for those who are serving on the front lines, for the nurses, for the doctors, for the EMTs, for the paramedics, and Greg said, being in a place, being in the sort of the center of the hot spot, and there's so much grief, and there's so much feeling of overwhelmness, and so much a feeling that there isn't much good news to share. But if you open your windows at 6:30 in New York City, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, black, white, yellow, brown, green, everybody is clapping and cheering and yelling in support of those who are doing the hardest work. And so I figure if folks in New York City can do that, that's a sign of resurrection.
Yeah.
To me, that's a resurrection sighting. It's not letting the fear have the last word, but our support of one another. And that's what I think is important for us to think about as we move through the rest of this Holy Week. I'm going to say, and then throw it back to Kyle, I'm going to say thank you all for tuning in and for your patience for our technical difficulties. They just make me laugh now. And for hanging with us. And we will chat again next Tuesday. And even though you're going to see Facebook posts, because I've seen them, that say when Jesus starts to come out of the tomb this week, he's going to be told to shelter at home and that he has to stay. We know that's not true, even though that may be a little funny for some folks. Jesus will be resurrected, and new life is ours to share. And that's the good news of the gospel. And Kyle, you're right. I haven't quite completed this year's Easter sermon yet. So thanks for just throwing that right out there in front of everyone. I know. I love you, Kyle. Close us out, Forey.
Well, that's all I got. We are looking forward to seeing you all next week, and in all of the services, Michael's service, audio service tomorrow night, Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, Easter at 9:15, 10:45. Take some time to get your, is it vitamin D you get from the sun? Whatever it is you get from the sun, do that. And know that we're praying for you, and we're looking forward to connecting. What'd you say?
Use sunscreen.
Use sunscreen.
Vitamin D is good, but you still need to use sunscreen.
All right.
Dr. Roberts. That's from
Excellent.
Dr. Roberts. Okay.
Well,
See you
God
all
bless you
later.
guys. We'll see you soon.
Happy Holy Week.